I put out these yellow headlines from the yellow mags. Okay, here it is. Okay, space, the biggest, the smallest, the farthest, the closest, the heaviest, the lightest, black holes. Is this science? Is this what science is all about? Just size and distance and, how old a black hole is? I mean, we see this every day. People gotten so tired of this thing. They're so bored with all this nonsense that, people have lost interest in physics and in science. That's where the tragedy really is. People have lost interest because they don't understand squat, and they hear the same thing every day. We've been hearing the same thing for the last 50 years. They've made no progress in quantum mechanics. So now they try to move over to string theory in one direction, and then they moved into the quantum field theory in the other. They abandoned the quantum. They have fields which are extended concepts instead of the quantum, which is supposed to be a discrete concept, right? Okay, so this is it. This is where we start. And what should I say? Well, I guess my lecture is over. That's all I had, right? Terrible headlines, yellow mags. Well, let's continue. Here you have the famous black hole picture, okay? I think you've seen it a billion times out there. Black hole, an object. No, it's not an object. What you're staring at is not an object. So heavy, it's constantly crushing itself into smaller and smaller object, and it does this faster than the speed of light speed. So there you have it. Is that a black hole? Absolutely not. What are we staring at? Okay? What are we looking at? That's what I want you to tell me. Okay? Are we staring at a black hole? Well, let's find out. Let's go to NASA. NASA can tell us unambiguously what we're staring at. And here it is. What they're telling you is that what you were staring at just a second ago is really something that's circling a center of some kind. So you have this black center, and there's something circling. Okay, so what you were looking at is kind of like a drain. Okay, you were not looking at a black hole, but what is rotating around a black hole. That's allegedly what they took a picture of, and it's not a picture like a snapshot. What they did was they did a composite. It was, they took pictures from different sides, and they made a composite of that, of what they called the black hole, and that's more or less what you're seeing there as well. So you see something in motion, first of all, and second, what you're seeing is stuff circling a center. That's what the picture shows. Okay, so you're not taking a snapshot of a black hole, which is what a lot of people think they're staring at. That's not what you're staring at. What you're staring at is a snapshot of allegedly something which is circling a region of space out there, right? So what you're looking at is this. You're looking at a drain, okay? That's what you're staring at, okay? And you're looking at not the drain, you're looking at the stuff that's circling the drain. That's allegedly what the picture shows, right? Okay, so is there a drain? That's the question, because that's supposedly the black hole. The drain itself is the black hole, okay? And I prefer to look at it rather than as a drain. I prefer to look at it as a toilet, which is, I think, where all this stuff belongs. So there it is. I think it should look more like this, right? Toilet. And I forget to put the brown stuff in there. But this is, I think, what where the black hole belongs, okay? This is what I think it is. It's a bunch of trash. That's what it is. I wouldn't even throw it into city dump because I don't want to mess up the city dump, with all this garbage that comes out of mathematical physics. Okay, so here's the black hole from NASA. This is what they think it is, and I liked it when I went in there. It says, due to the lapse in federal government funding, NASA is not updating this website. Absolutely loved it, and I hope they continue removing funds from NASA, especially from all the idiots, the mental retards who talk about relativity and quantum mechanics, but mainly general relativity and special relativity. We need to get rid of all these people from positions of power. They don't belong there. They talk trash. That's all they do. That's all they've put out there. It says black holes are mysterious cosmic objects. Absolutely not. They're not objects at all. Okay, much studied but not fully understood. Yeah, they don't understand it because it's a concept which they reified and turned into an object. That's what it is. These objects aren't really holes. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, because a hole is a concept. So what is this thingy you call a black hole, a singularity, or whatever you call it? They're huge concentrations of matter packed into very tiny spaces. In other words, they're saying that we're talking about a ball that's got a lot of matter compressed into this little tiny ball, this golf ball or whatever, right? Gravity just beneath its surface, the event horizon, right, is strong enough that nothing, not even light, can escape. Okay, so they're talking about an event horizon, but they say the event horizon isn't a surface like the Earth's or even the sun's. It's a boundary that contains all the matter that makes up the black hole. A boundary of what? You know, it's like I like to use the analogy of a campfire. You know, the campfire, the heat goes to a certain extent. And you can say that the extent where you can still feel the heat to some degree, right? We'll call that the event horizon of the campfire. Okay, so you have this surface, which is not a surface. You can't stand on that surface, on the surface of temperature, right? But that's more or less what they're explaining. And I like it says they don't understand much about black holes, right? But yeah, the issue is that think of it as a campfire, right? You have a campfire, and the heat goes to a certain extent. Okay, so you go far enough away that at some point you can't feel the heat. Okay, and we'll call that the surface, the event horizon of the campfire. That's essentially what a black hole is. So you can't stand on this surface because it's not a surface. What it is the extent to which the heat reached, and in this case you're talking about mass or gravity. It reached up to a certain point, up to the event horizon, which is where the speed of light, changes, right? Okay, so this is the issue. The issue is that we're talking about the event horizon is not a physical object, and it encapsulates a campfire that ain't a campfire. In other words, there's no logs there. There's no real fire going on there. What it is, you have all this matter coming to a center ball, and somehow it produces this aura, this ghostly spirit known as the event horizon, which is the separation between the surface of where gravity still is strong to the center of this thing, which they call the singularity. Okay, so we need to understand a little bit of what a singularity is. What is a singularity, and why does it extend its gravity all the way to the edge? Why is there gravity there? I mean, if you happen to be close to the event horizon or across the line, why are you attracted to the center? What's coming in physical contact with your body? I mean, is this done by angels? Is this done by spirits? How is it that your body is attracted to the center of the black hole called the singularity? Why? What's coming in contact with your body? That's the question that we're asking. It better be a physical object, okay? And so we need to know how the black hole is created, how it originates. And according to these people, they say it's a star that collapses upon itself like that, okay? And so it collapses and it reaches a tiny little point called the singularity. That's the black hole, and it's surrounded by an aura of gravity, we call it. And that aura is a concept. They just say that's as far as gravity reaches, so that you have this speed of light border, right? That's it. That's all it is. And that's only one way they create black holes. Then they say they have more massive black holes when one black hole eats another black hole and another black hole and another one. And so that's how they get to billions of masses or billions of suns, as far as mass is concerned. That's how big these things are, according to these folks, okay? So one of the problem here is that, is there any matter at all alive between the event horizon and the singularity? Is there matter there at all? Are there atoms still there? And you have all these people, all these are registered mathematicians, and they claim that matter is completely crushed out of existence. Okay, there you have several of them: Cole Miller, University of Maryland, Craig Wheeler, etc. And you can go down and you'll find them all saying that it's crushed out of existence, all matter. There is no matter inside a black hole. So we have a contradiction because Some people say that it's all a little ball of crushed matter, of compressed matter. And these people say, no, matter is completely crushed out of existence. So which is true? I mean, is all matter crushed out of existence, or is there a little ball there that weighs a lot? And either way, again, you got to explain how that ball, assuming, here's the ball, here's the singularity, or the little ball at the center, I guess. I don't know how else to tell you. Okay, so here's the ball. Okay, it's got a lot of mass, a lot of matter crushed into this little ball. Fine, no problem. It weighs gazillions of tons, this ball, right? Because it's got all this matter crushed in there. No problem. No problem whatsoever. Okay, now how does it affect me? How does that ball come in contact with my atoms and pull me towards the ball? That's what you got to explain. A mechanism. Give me a mechanism. Okay, don't tell me it does, that you measured, that you verified and proved and falsified and whatever. No, tell me the mechanism. I need to see a mechanism of how the ball pulls on me. In other words, how does a black hole pull on a star that's thousands of miles away? How does it do it? How is it pulling on that star and forcing it to go around in circles around itself, or pulls flay it alive because it's pulling the skin off of this star? So how does it do it from afar? We need to find out a mechanism how the black hole interacts with physical objects that we can see. If you cannot explain the mechanism, you don't have a theory. Period. You're done. And so here's two versions. Hold it. Here we have the gravitational singularity is a theoretical condition in which gravity is predicted to be so intense that space-time number lines would break down. Number lines, I put that in there, by the way, would break down catastrophically. As such, a singularity is by definition no longer part of the regular space-time number lines, right? Because that's what they're talking about. They're talking about space-time. What is space-time? For number lines. That's what space-time is. And so they're talking about warping or catastrophically breaking the number lines, whatever that means. What does that have to do with physics? I have no idea. Or with reality? I have no idea. And says gravitational singularities exist at a junction between general relativity and quantum mechanics. Therefore, the properties of the singularity cannot be described without an established theory of quantum gravity. So they don't have a theory, they don't have a definition really of the word singularity. They've been with the word singularity now for 100 years, over 100 years, and they still cannot define the term. They don't know what a singularity is. It's the core of a black hole. They're all looking for it. They all prove the black hole. It's been confirmed. It's been falsified, verified. And it turns out that they don't know what a singularity is, which is the core of black hole. Trying to find a complete and precise definition of singularities in the theory of general relativity, what remains a difficult problem. Now, it's impossible because, here they've been over 100 years. They don't know what a singularity is. Singularity in general relativity can be defined by number line curvature, because that's what they're curving there. They're curving number lines, and they say they become infinite, whatever that means. So they're stretching this thing to infinity, and they say that's what a black hole does. It stretches the number lines all the way to infinity. What kind of nonsense is that? What does that have to do with physics, with reality? So this is the problem. They cannot define the singularity. And so what I like to do is, this is a good time to bring good old John Baez back into and help us out with this. And he says, crackpot index, 14. 10 points for each new term you invent and use without properly defining it. Yeah, good old John Baez, he criticized all these people. They say, hey, you haven't defined what singularity is in 100 years. So what chances are that you will define it in another 100 years? I don't think so. And so these are the notions they have of what a singularity is. Okay, some people think it's a tiny ball of matter. Others think it's been crushed out of existence. All remains is a hole, but a hole in what? I heard of a hole in one, but never a hole in nothing. And that's what the singularity is, a hole in nothing. And you have all this matter that's falling forever towards the singularity, but never makes it to the singularity or through the singularity, because the laws of physics break down at the singularity. That's the answer you get. What do you mean the laws of physics break down to the singularity? What does that mean? Well, the equations get all these infinities. In other words, the matter always falls, it never makes it there. So it's still between the singularity and the event horizon. And then you have these other bozos who said, no, matter is all completely crushed out of existence. So which is it? And others say, it all is compacted into a ball. So which of these is true? I mean, please tell us, mathematicians, which of these different versions is the correct one. Will the real singularity please stand up? So this is the problem. We don't have a definition for singularity. We don't know what a singularity is. We don't know if the black hole contains matter between the singularity and the event horizon. We don't know if all the matter has gone crushed out of existence, meaning it went through the singularity, and so we don't know what a black hole is. But assuming we knew and we had the singularity, down pat, like let's assume it's a ball, or let's assume any of them, I don't care, just a bunch of mass, how does that affect a star far away? How does it tell me the physical mechanism? Don't tell me that it's got a lot of mass, because that doesn't explain the mechanism of how it attracts or influences a star. That's what you got to explain, the mechanism. If you don't have that, you don't have a theory. You have this garbage mathematics that has no validity in physics. It has no place in physics or in science, for that matter. So yeah, we come back to the yellow mags there. This is what they talk about: the biggest, the closest, the farthest, the heaviest, the oldest. This is it. This is what we get. This is what they call science out there. And people have gotten so sick of it that people don't care anymore. They don't care anymore about physics, and that's where the real crime has been committed.